Family expected me to let my newlywed brother live rent-free in my $500,000 house. They called me Heartless when I handed them a $3,000 rental agreement. Hi everyone! Today's story will blow your mind, but really quick, if you enjoy this content, hit that subscribe button. Channel's been a bit quiet lately, and your support keeps it all going. Let's jump in. Original post. I never thought I'd be writing one of these posts, but here I am, sitting in my home office at 2 a.m., wondering if I'm the villain in my own family story. My name is Michael, I'm 28, and I've spent the last 6 years building a life that my family seems determined to dismantle, one guilt trip at a time. Let me paint you a picture of how I got here. I grew up in what you'd call a traditional household. My parents, Patricia and Robert, myself, and my younger brother Tyler. 8 years separate us, which meant I was already navigating high school when Tyler was still in elementary school. That age gap created an interesting dynamic. I was less of a brother and more of a third parent, expected to set examples, make sacrifices, and pave the way for Tyler's easier journey through life. I took that responsibility seriously, perhaps too seriously. While my friends were partying through college, I was working 2 jobs to minimize my student loans. When they were backpacking through Europe after graduation, I was grinding through 70-hour weeks at an accounting firm, saving every penny for a down payment on a house. I bought my home 3 years ago, a beautiful 4-bedroom colonial in a suburb 40 minutes outside the city, complete with a finished basement and a backyard that backs up to protected woodlands. The house represented everything I'd worked for: stability, independence, and proof that the sacrifices had been worth it. The mortgage payment of $2,800 monthly was manageable with my senior accountant salary, and I'd even converted 1 bedroom into a home office, allowing me to take on freelance clients for extra income. Life was good, peaceful, organized. Mine. Then Tyler announced his engagement to Ashley 6 months ago. Don't get me wrong, I like Ashley. She's sweet, artistic, works part-time at a boutique while pursuing her photography business. She makes Tyler happy, and at 20, he seems more grounded with her than he ever was before. The wedding was planned for late September, a modest but beautiful affair at a local vineyard that my parents largely funded. The first red flag came up during a family dinner in July. My mother, never one for subtlety, mentioned how challenging the rental market had become for young couples. Tyler and Ashley have been looking at apartments, she said, cutting her chicken with surgical precision, but everything decent is at least $2,500 a month. Can you imagine? For a young couple just starting out. I made appropriate sympathetic noises while internally calculating that $2,500 was actually below market rate for our area. The conversation drifted to other topics, but I should have recognized the reconnaissance mission for what it was. The real ambush came 2 weeks before the wedding. I'd been invited to my parents' house for what they called a family meeting. Tyler and Ashley were there, practically vibrating with nervous energy, while my parents sat with the kind of formal posture that meant they'd rehearsed whatever was coming. Michael, my father began, using his business voice. He's a retail manager, and this was his closing a deal tone. We've been discussing Tyler and Ashley's living situation. They've found some apartments, my mother jumped in, but the deposits and first month's rent are astronomical. With the wedding expenses and all. I knew where this was heading, but I let them continue their choreographed pitch. Your house has so much space, Tyler finally burst out, apparently unable to stick to whatever script they'd prepared. The basement is completely finished, with its own bathroom and everything. We wouldn't even be in your way. Ashley squeezed his hand, adding softly, it would just be temporary, until we can save up enough for our own place. There it was. The ask. The expectation. The assumption that my life, my space, my sanctuary was a family resource to be allocated as needed. How temporary? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. Maybe a year. Tyler said hopefully. Just until we can save for a deposit and get established. My mother leaned forward. Think of it as a wedding present, Michael. The gift of stability while they start their married life. Family helps family. Family helps family. The phrase that had haunted my entire life. Family helps family meant I couldn't go to sleepaway camp because the money was needed for Tyler's asthma treatments. Family helps family meant I drove a 15-year-old Honda through college while Tyler got a newer car for his 16th birthday because he had more friends to drive around. Family helps family meant I was selfish for considering graduate school because the loans would prevent me from being there financially if the family needed help. I need to think about it, I said, buying myself time. The wedding came and went, a beautiful event where I played the role of supportive older brother, gave a heartfelt toast about watching Tyler grow into the man standing before us, and danced with elderly aunts who all commented on how generous I was, how responsible, how family-oriented. If only they knew the conversations happening behind the scenes. My parents had clearly leaked the possibility of Tyler and Ashley moving in with me, because I faced a receiving line of relatives throughout the reception, each one making comments about how wonderful it was that I was helping the newlyweds get started. My Aunt Linda actually teared up, squeezing my hand and telling me my deceased grandmother would be so proud of how you take care of your brother. The pressure was suffocating. But pressure, I'd learned from years in accounting, could either crush you or forge you into something harder. As I watched Tyler and Ashley dance, young and in love and blissfully unaware of how the real world actually worked, I made my decision. 3 days after the wedding, I invited them all back to my house. I'd prepared thoroughly, printed documents, organized folders, rehearsed my presentation. If they wanted to treat my home as a family resource, I'd treat this as a business negotiation. They arrived in high spirits. Tyler and Ashley were still glowing from their honeymoon weekend at a local resort, another gift from my parents, and my parents seemed pleased that I'd called this meeting. They probably thought I was about to hand over a set of keys with a bow on them. I directed everyone to my dining room, where I'd laid out 4 folders, one at each place setting. Before we discuss any living arrangements, I began, opening my own folder, I want to make sure we're all clear on expectations and boundaries. The mood shifted. I could see my mother's smile tighten, my father's eyebrows draw together. Tyler looked confused, while Ashley seemed to shrink into herself. This is a rental agreement, I continued, pulling out the first document. If Tyler and Ashley move in, it will be as tenants, not as house guests. The rent for the basement unit, which constitutes approximately 1,000 square feet of living space with private entrance and bathroom, will be $3,000 per month. The silence was deafening. Tyler's mouth actually fell open. $3,000, my mother gasped. Michael, that's more than most apartments. Actually, it's market rate for our area, I replied, pulling out printed comparable listings. A 1-bedroom apartment with similar square footage and amenities runs between $2,800 and $3,200. I'm offering the middle of that range. But we're family, Tyler protested, his face flushing red. Which is why I'm offering month-to-month terms instead of requiring a year lease, I said calmly. The rental agreement includes utilities, internet, and access to laundry facilities. I'm also waiving the security deposit, which would typically be another $3,000. Ashley found her voice. We can't afford $3,000 a month. That's why we needed help in the first place. I nodded sympathetically. I understand. Which is why I've prepared some alternative options. I flipped to the next section of the folder. Here's a list of apartments in the $1,500 to $2,000 range. They're farther from the city, and some might require a commute, but they're within a more reasonable budget for a young couple. My father slammed his folder shut. This is ridiculous, Michael. We're not asking you to rent to them. We're asking you to help family. I am helping, I replied. I'm offering them a rental opportunity with no security deposit, no credit check, and no lease commitment. That's $3,000 in immediate savings plus flexibility they won't find elsewhere. You're being selfish, my mother said, her voice sharp with disappointment. After everything this family has done for you. What exactly has this family done for me? I interrupted, my carefully maintained calm finally cracking. I worked 2 jobs through college while Tyler got allowance money. I lived on ramen and peanut butter while saving for this house while Tyler got his car paid for. I've been expected to be the responsible one, the mature one, the one who sacrifices, since I was 10 years old. I love Tyler, but I'm done subsidizing his life at the expense of my own. Tyler stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. I never asked you to sacrifice anything for me. No, you didn't have to ask, I said, meeting his eyes. It was just expected. Well, I'm setting boundaries now. If you want to live here, you pay rent. If you can't afford the rent, you find somewhere else. That's how adulting works. Ashley was crying now, quiet tears sliding down her cheeks. My mother wrapped an arm around her, glaring at me like I'd just kicked a puppy. You have 48 hours to decide, I said, standing up. The offer stands until then. After that, I'll be looking for actual tenants for the basement unit, people who will pay the full $3,000 plus security deposit. The meeting ended with my family filing out in silence. Tyler slammed my front door hard enough to rattle the pictures on the wall. My mother didn't even look at me. My father muttered something about knowing where I stood as he left. I spent that night alone in my house, the quiet that I usually treasured feeling oppressive and accusatory. Was I being unreasonable? Was I letting years of resentment color what should be a simple act of familial generosity? No. I'd worked too hard to turn my home into someone else's crash pad. I'd been reasonable, offering them a legitimate rental arrangement instead of a flat refusal. If they couldn't see that, it was their problem, not mine. Update 1, 2 days later. The 48 hours passed without a word from anyone. On the morning of day 3, I texted Tyler a simple message: "I assume you've declined the rental offer. Best of luck with your housing search." His response came within minutes: "You're an asshole." I didn't reply. There was nothing to say that wouldn't escalate the situation, and I'd made my position clear. I went about my day, working from my home office, taking client calls, living my life in the space I'd earned. That evening, my phone exploded with messages. Apparently, Tyler and Ashley had assumed I was bluffing. They'd spent the 2 days complaining to extended family members about my cruelty instead of apartment hunting, fully expecting me to cave and apologize. When my text made it clear the offer was rescinded, panic set in. Ashley called first, her voice trembling. "Michael, please. We were just shocked. We didn't think you were serious about charging us rent. Can we talk about this?" The time for talking was during the 48-hour window, I replied. "You chose not to use it." "But where are we supposed to go?" she wailed. "We've been staying with my parents, but my dad says we need to be out by the end of the week." Interesting. So Ashley's parents had boundaries, but I wasn't allowed to have any? "I provided you with a list of affordable apartments," I reminded her. "Several of them have immediate availability." Tyler grabbed the phone. "Those apartments are shitholes an hour from our jobs." "Then I guess you'll need to make a choice about priorities," I said. "Good luck with your search." I hung up and immediately blocked both their numbers. I knew the storm was coming, and I needed at least a few hours of peace before it hit. The family group chat, which I hadn't blocked, became a battlefield. My mother sent a lengthy message about how devastated she was by my callousness. Various aunts and uncles weighed in, most supporting my parents' position that family should support family unconditionally. Only one voice of reason emerged: my cousin Nicholas, who'd been through his own boundary-setting journey with his parents. He texted me privately, "Stay strong. You're right. They'll get over it or they won't, but either way, you'll have your peace." Update 2, 2 weeks later. Tyler and Ashley found an apartment. A one-bedroom in a complex 45 minutes from the city. Rent $1,750 per month. My mother made sure I knew about it through a very pointed Facebook post about how proud she was of Tyler for overcoming adversity and making his own way despite obstacles. The subplot was about as subtle as a brick to the face. What my mother didn't post about was the financial reality hitting the newlyweds. Ashley called my mother crying 3 days after they moved in because they'd had to choose between groceries and gas money. Tyler had apparently drastically underestimated the cost of utilities, having never paid them before. Their first electric bill was a shock. They'd been running the AC constantly and hadn't realized the cost. My mother, of course, gave them money. My father paid their car insurance for the month. The family enabling system kicked into overdrive, everyone except me rushing to cushion Tyler and Ashley from the consequences of adult life. I heard all this through Nicholas, who kept me updated on the family drama I was missing. According to him, my parents were hemorrhaging money trying to support Tyler and Ashley's lifestyle while also maintaining their own. The wedding had already stretched their finances, and now this added burden was causing tension between them. "Your mom asked me if I could lend them some money," Nicholas told me during one of our calls. "I said I'd have to check with my financial advisor first." That financial advisor being you, of course. "And what did your financial advisor say?" I asked, smiling for the first time in weeks. "That enabling isn't helping, and that sometimes the best thing you can do for someone is let them struggle enough to learn." Update 3, 6 weeks later. The universe has an interesting sense of humor. 6 weeks after the initial blow-up, I received a call from Jennifer, a former colleague who knew about my basement rental unit through casual conversation months earlier. "Hey Michael, random question. Is your basement still potentially available for rent? My sister Emily is relocating for a job and needs a place ASAP. She can pay market rate." I met Emily that weekend. She was 32, a marketing manager, with excellent references and a stable income. She loved the basement unit, especially the private entrance and the quiet neighborhood. She signed a 1-year lease at $3,000 per month, with first month, last month, and security deposit paid up front. $9,000. Just like that. I debated whether to tell my family about the new tenant. Part of me wanted to prove that my asking price had been fair, that someone was willing to pay what Tyler and Ashley couldn't. But the petty satisfaction wasn't worth reopening those wounds. They found out anyway, of course. Small towns have big mouths, and someone saw Emily moving in and immediately reported back to my mother. The resulting phone call was explosive. "You rented to a stranger instead of your own brother," she screamed. "I rented to someone who could pay the rent," I corrected. "Tyler had the same opportunity. He chose not to take it. Family doesn't charge family rent." "Then I guess we have different definitions of family," I said, and hung up. The relationship with my parents grew colder. We went from weekly dinners to no contact at all. Tyler and I hadn't spoken since the apartment hunt. Ashley had tried reaching out through social media, but I'd maintained my boundaries. The family gossip mill painted me as the villain, the successful son who'd turned his back on family in their time of need. But here's what they didn't see: I slept better. My house was peaceful. My weekends were my own. I didn't have to worry about Tyler and Ashley's drama, their money problems, their inevitable requests for just a little help this month. Emily was a dream tenant, quiet, responsible, paying rent on time. The rental income allowed me to pay down my mortgage faster and build my emergency fund. Final update, 3 months later. 3 months. That's how long it took for the house of cards to collapse. Tyler lost his job. Not through any malicious circumstance or bad luck, he simply hadn't shown up reliably. The entry-level marketing position he'd landed after college required consistent attendance, something Tyler had never really mastered when there were no real consequences. Without my parents or me to cover for him, reality hit hard. Ashley's photography business wasn't generating enough income to cover their rent. My parents had been supplementing their income, but the well was running dry. My father had taken out a personal loan to help them, and the payments were straining their own budget. The eviction notice came in month 3. Tyler and Ashley couldn't make rent, couldn't pay the late fees, couldn't negotiate with a landlord who didn't care that they were young and just starting out. The property management company wanted paying tenants, not sob stories. My phone rang on a Tuesday evening. It was my father, his voice tired and defeated. "They need to move back with us," he said without preamble. "Okay," I replied, stirring the pasta I was making for dinner. "That's it. Okay. No gloating. No, I told you so. What would be the point?" I asked. "You all made your choices. Tyler chose not to accept my rental terms. You and Mom chose to enable them instead of letting them figure it out. These are the consequences." There was a long silence. "The offer you made, would that still be available?" "No," I said firmly. "I have a tenant. A reliable, rent-paying tenant with a lease. For family." "Dad, Tyler had his chance to be my tenant. He chose to be family instead. Now he gets to be your family. I hope that works out better for everyone." Another silence. Then, quietly, "You've changed, Michael." "No," I corrected. "I've just stopped pretending that setting myself on fire will keep other people warm." The call ended there. Tyler and Ashley moved in with my parents the following week. My mother's Facebook posts about family togetherness became less frequent, then stopped altogether. The reality of having 2 additional adults in their 3-bedroom ranch, with all their stuff and their problems and their learned helplessness, was apparently less Instagram-worthy than she'd imagined. Nicholas kept me updated on the ongoing saga. Tyler still hadn't found a new job. Ashley was talking about going back to school, which would mean more expenses. My parents were looking into refinancing their house to manage the debt they'd accumulated trying to support the newlyweds. Meanwhile, I sat in my peaceful home office, Emily's rent check for month 4 clearing in my bank account, my mortgage principal decreasing, my savings growing. The house was quiet except for the sound of autumn wind through the trees in my backyard. No drama. No expectations. No guilt trips. Last week, I received a text from Tyler. The first communication in 3 months that wasn't through other people. "I get it now." Just that. 3 words. No apology, no elaboration, no request for reconciliation. Just acknowledgement. I didn't respond. There was nothing to say. Understanding was a start, but it didn't erase the months of being painted as the villain for having boundaries. It didn't undo the family rifts that had formed because I'd refused to be an ATM with a pulse. Emily renewed her lease yesterday, signing on for another year at $3,100 per month, a small increase that she happily accepted because, in her words, good landlords who respect boundaries and maintain properties are worth their weight in gold. My parents have started tentatively reaching out. Small things, a forwarded meme here, a "how are you?" text there. I respond politely but don't engage beyond surface level. They're learning that access to my life is a privilege, not a right, and that family helps family is a 2-way street that they'd made one way for far too long. Tyler and Ashley are still living with my parents. Still struggling. Still learning, hopefully, That adulthood isn't something that happens to you but something you actively participate in. Maybe they'll figure it out. Maybe they won't. Either way, it's not my problem to solve. Because here's what I've learned through all of this. You can love your family and still refuse to be their safety net. You can want the best for people and still insist they work for it themselves. You can be supportive without being a support beam. My house is still my sanctuary. My life is still my own. And if that makes me the villain in their story, well, I'm comfortable being the bad guy who pays his own bills, maintains his boundaries, and sleeps peacefully at night in his own bed, in his own house, that he worked for, sacrificed for, and earned. Family helps family, they said. But sometimes the best help you can give is refusing to help at all. Sometimes love looks like letting people fail, struggle, and ultimately grow. And sometimes, the most important family member you need to protect is yourself. The rental income from Emily has allowed me to start that graduate degree I'd put off for years. I'm taking evening classes, working toward an MBA that will open new career doors. The same education I'd foregone because family needed me to be available is now possible because I chose to be unavailable. Funny how that works. My home office now doubles as a study space. The dining room where I'd laid out those rental agreements now hosts study groups for my MBA program. The basement that was supposed to house my brother rent-free now funds my future. Last night, I stood in my backyard, watching deer emerge from the tree line in the fading autumn light. My phone was quiet. No crisis calls, no guilt trips, no emergency family meetings. Just peace. The kind of peace you can only achieve when you stop trying to save everyone and start saving yourself. Was I right to charge my brother market rate rent? Was I justified in maintaining those boundaries when they struggled? Was I the asshole in this story? Maybe. But I was also the only one who ended up with stable housing, improving finances, and a clear path forward. And if that makes me the villain, then I'll wear that title with pride, all the way to the bank, in my peaceful house, living my boundary-protected life. Because at the end of the day, Tyler was right in his text. He gets it now. And maybe, just maybe, that understanding is worth more than all the free rent in the world. Even if it came 3 months, 1 eviction, and several $1,000s too late. The irony isn't lost on me. In trying to force me to house them for free, my family ended up teaching Tyler the value of paying your own way. Just not in the manner any of us expected. My next tenant is already lined up for when Emily eventually moves on, a young professional couple, both with stable jobs, excellent references, and the ability to pay market rate without family drama. I've learned to screen for more than just credit scores and employment history. I screen for accountability, for understanding of boundaries, for the ability to separate business from personal. All the things Tyler and Ashley lacked. All the things my family couldn't see past their help family mantra. The last family dinner I attended was Thanksgiving. I brought a pie and stayed for exactly 2 hours. Tyler and Ashley were there, living testament to what happens when you expect the world to cushion your fall. They looked tired, older somehow, though only months had passed. We exchanged pleasantries, but nothing more. As I left, Tyler followed me to my car. The apartment you have available. He started. Is rented through next year, I finished. And there's already a waiting list. He nodded, understanding. No hard feelings, no accusations. Just acceptance of reality. For what it's worth, he said, you were right. About all of it. I know, I replied, getting into my car. But you had to learn that for yourself. Driving home to my quiet house, Emily's car already in the driveway, porch light on, everything exactly as it should be, I reflected on the journey. 3 months of being the villain had taught me more about self-worth than 28 years of being the hero ever had. My phone buzzed with a text from Nicholas. Family dinner was apparently a disaster after you left. Tyler and your dad got into it about job hunting. Your mom cried. Ashley left early. Still think you're the bad guy. I deleted the text without responding. Their drama, their problems, their consequences. Not my circus, not my monkeys, not my responsibility. Just me, in my house that I earned, living my life that I built, surrounded by the peace that boundaries bring. And worth every single moment of being the villain to achieve it.